have to have knowledge of how the industry works to be effective.
I think we're in a business that lives and dies basically by the song.
You should do what pleases you. You have to please yourself first.
Leave the money out of it. Only do what you would do for free. That's when you make $1 million.
Hi, I'm Rich Ezra. I spent 7 years as an A&R man for Arista Records. A&R stands for Artist and Repertoire. In other words, I was the guy that went out and discovered and signed new talent. It's funny though, a lot of the new bands that I discovered felt that the only thing that you needed to land a record deal is talent. Well, in today's day and age, you need more than talent. You need information. And that's what you're about to get. Information from the pros. Executives, producers, managers, and successful recording artists.
I'm your private dancer, a dancer for money. Do what you want me to do. I'm your private dancer, a dancer for money. And any old music will do.
A&R executives can be some of the most difficult people to reach. So once you do get through, it is vital that you make an impression that will separate you from all the rest.
Basically, an A&R person is the person who is looking out for the talent that exists within the label, number one. Helping take that talent and get in tune with the vision of that talent, take it to the next level, to spending an incredible amount of time looking for the next great talent. And you're looking for artistry, you're looking for something that is intangible to most, but that you and that artist see the vision together.
Another one of the main responsibilities of an A&R person is to be the in-house contact and the liaison and the mouthpiece for that artist within the rest of the company. The A&R person is the first person that's contacted at the label by an artist, and it's that person's responsibility to motivate the rest of the company, to get all the departments excited about that artist.
There are several things that an independent label can offer that is different than a major label to an artist that makes it unique, and in some cases would be their first choice. I think probably the first is that you get the specific attention and priority of the label, whereas if you're at a major company, if you're the star, if you're Tina Turner at Capitol, then you get a much higher priority. But if you're not, of course, you can become the big fish in a small pond. That's one. But also, independent labels, those that thrive, identify a specific marketplace, a specialty marketplace, normally something that the major labels are not involved in. Examples are folk music, bluegrass music, jazz, certainly dance music has been developing now, and on the street scene type things. Rap music started on independent labels. Those kind of specialty musics that are outside of the pop mainstream usually start on an independent label.
I think an act is ready to be signed when the songs are there, when I feel that they are mature, that every band is at their own level. Some bands bring a lot more to my attention than just great songs, great performance, the charisma, and all the other elements are there. It's like less X factor you have, the more attracted I am.
I look for different things in different artists in the different fields, of course, but I always look for a unique and specific vision, artistic vision. If that artist has something that they really believe in and that they are putting forth, and it's stylistically consistent and the talent is there and the music is there, that's what I'm looking for.
The main quality I look for in any act that I might be looking at to sign is talent. But talent, that's a broad term. Talent comes in a lot of different ways. For some people, it might be their vocal ability. Other people may not be the most talented vocalist, but they're a visionary. Okay, I think someone like a Prince falls into that area. I wouldn't say Prince is one of the top 10 vocalists out there, but he's got to be one of the top 10 visionaries out there. And he knows what works for him. He knows how to write for his voice.
Unique artists have an advantage and a disadvantage. They have the advantage of being unique, of being one of a kind, of being something that reviewers and critics and everybody can go, that's special, I've never seen that before, I love what you do. They have the disadvantage that the media, in particular radio, is formatted. and they have to put your song side by side with another song, and it has to somehow fit together. And they have a particular concept of the type of music they're trying to play on their radio station. And even though there are now many types of formats, maybe 10 different radio formats, you still have to fit within one of those formats to get exposed.
It's kind of funny, though, people really miss the boat when they're sending in demo tapes often, is we'll have a hit with somebody like Stryper or Poison, and for the next month I'll get tapes saying, I'm just like Poison. Well, that's great. I don't even have to listen to that tape because I know it's nothing I want. We already have Poison. We do not need another one. We already have Stryper. We already have Smithereens. And so the worst thing they can do is to say, I'm just like this.
What I'm not looking for is someone who comes in and says, well, here on my demo tape are 4 different types of songs. First I did a ballad, then I did a funk song, then I did a rock song because heavy metal is in, and then I did a solo acoustic thing because I could be a folk singer if you'd like that. That tells me that they're really not, they don't have a vision for themselves. They don't know who they are or what they have to offer.
To any A&R person, the song element becomes very important. I think we're in a business that lives and dies basically by the song. And, you know, maybe that's just me. Maybe I must say I'm an admirer of Berry Gordy. I look at Berry and I think, what made this man so powerful? What made Motown happen? It was songs.
Some acts, lyrics are not nearly as important as is the musical substance, or if it's a dance artist, or if it's an artist that's a groove artist, or much more of a musically oriented club dance artist, obviously lyrics aren't as important. But I think with respect to longevity of an artist, I think lyrics help establish a certain sense of quality with regards to an artist.
I'm very oriented to titles. Having been a lyricist as a songwriter, I am still into lyrics as the primary ingredient in a song, and of those main ingredients, a song title will catch my attention.
When it comes to demos, the more produced demo certainly helps. You know, I think most people, not just A&R people, but most people, period, your ear gravitates towards what's more pleasing, and generally speaking, what's more pleasing is something that's better produced, more fully produced, where you don't have to sit there and try and imagine what it would sound like with a bass line in it, or what it would sound like with the drums in there. When it's all laid out for you, it makes life a lot easier.
I'm only listening to maybe 10, 15 seconds with some demo tapes. So I think it's very important that it's produced for the artist. It's produced and sounds as good as possible.
As far as numbers, I think we're still at 3 songs is the best balance, and that's enough to be interested and ask for more if it's available. A tape with too much material, to me, reads indecision.
When someone is sending in a demo tape, they have to remember what they're up against. They're up against 499 other people that are sending in a tape that week, and they're trying to be, they want to be listened to. Well, of all those tapes that they're showing up, there's a lot coming from managers and lawyers and producers that already have a relationship with that label. So they're going to have to do something that makes them get listened to. Sending a tape and saying, attention A&R department, won't cut it.
If somebody brings me a video with respect to trying to get a record deal, will that help them get the deal? Not necessarily so, unless this video exposes an image that is so strong and unique and different from anything else I'd seen.
Can videos help land a deal? I think more and more, yeah. Yeah, in fact, I get turned on when someone sends me a video, because then I get to see all those other things that we're talking, all those intangibles, you know. It goes beyond just listening and saying, oh, I like that. Now you're seeing it.
There's a lot of different ways to get to an A&R person. Through a lawyer, through a manager, through an acquaintance, through publishers, through agents. The networking is the most important thing you can do to try to get to an A&R person.
The best tapes I hear are from publishers. A lot of publishers these days are acting in a kind of artist development capacity. You know, a publisher believes that he's found a really good songwriter, artist, or group. He might sign them to a publishing deal and invest 6 to 12 months to developing them as an artist before letting the world know about it, you know, before presenting them to A&R people. That happens quite a lot. A couple of artists I know of were nurtured by lawyers, no less. You know, there are some creative lawyers out there. Not very many, but there are a few. And when they send me something, I listen to it straight away.
People have to do their homework to know exactly who they're sending it to. It helps if they call, lay the foundation to let them know that the tape's coming through. Now again, if the person they're calling is the director of A&R or vice president of A&R, he's got 500 people calling them. So it's not, there's no real easy or surefire way of getting a tape listened to. The best thing though is to do the homework to know who you're sending it to. If you can go through an intermediary, a producer, a manager, a lawyer that has a relationship, that always helps. And then to send a package that's worthy. You know, if all the things show up, if something shows up and it's a poorly handwritten tape, or if the tape copy is defective or does not sound good or is not professionally duplicated, it's not going to get listened to.
I think a lot of people, they send their tapes in the mail. I get, you know, boxloads. I think the mailman gets tired coming here with tapes every day. But the reality is very difficult to get to all of these tapes. So what you're really looking for is somebody, you know, somebody who can make that contact for you, so you're not just another tape sitting in a box somewhere hoping somebody finds 2 minutes to listen to it.
I'm open to unsolicited stuff. I'm open to seeing new bands. I'm on the street. I'm approachable. I see a lot of acts. 5 days a week, you'll see me in 5 clubs, you know, at least, sometimes 2 or 3 a night.
In the 6-year Enigma history, we have on occasion signed bands from unsolicited tapes. We've probably received close to 1 million tapes or something, so it's very rare. But of note, the Smithereens was unsolicited tape.
In today's market, I think a non-performing artist can make it. I think now things have become so studio-oriented, so production-oriented, that yeah, I think it happens all the time.
Well, for an independent label, live performance is essential because it is our first level of marketing. It's our primary thing. We go out there and the band plays and people see them and they want to buy their records. Even if they're not being heard on the radio, even if they haven't read about them in Rolling Stone this week, you know, if they're not getting the big media coverage and if we're not able to buy an enormous amount of ad space for them, they at least go out and create a grassroots following, somebody who wants their record. And in fact, we start only with live bands that I can go out and see and know that they've already got a following.
A live performance can make all the difference in the world to my perception of an act. Many's the time I have gone to see a band and they have so totally eclipsed what was on a tape that I've gotten involved.
If an act has the major elements that we're looking for, one being strong music, of course, 2 being some kind of following, even if it's in their area. If they've started to make a story in Columbus, Ohio, and can bring that to the table, certainly it's, you know, you don't have to live in New York, Los Angeles, or Nashville to get going.
No, but a very important thing to remember is that they're competing against bands that are located in Los Angeles and New York that we're seeing every day. And you know, we only have so many slots open to sign, and if we've got bands that are right in our face developing a following in Los Angeles, they have to have a competitive advantage over somebody maybe in Tulsa.
I always compare this business to sports, okay? There's not to say that a 35-year-old athlete can't make it, but his odds are a lot better if he's out there when he's 18, 19, 20.
At CBS, at Columbia, we are constantly involved in nurturing and developing talent. And we do that by giving demo money, by doing showcases, a variety of things. One of the wonderful things about it is we can get the options on the first option usually, or the first choice of whether we want to work with the act or not. But we're real bullish on that. I mean, if there's somebody that we see that's even remotely talented, or somebody that we think that there's something there that if we put them the right producer, really encourage artists to record demos. And if they can't do it, support themselves financially, then we'll do it.
The artist should have a clear idea of what their image is and have it be consistent through the music, through the packaging, through the appearance, the publicity photos. All that should be worked out long before a record company is even approached.
It's very important for an artist when they come to a record company, not so much to worry about their production, their videos, their sound. It's much more important that they have a true sense of who and what they are.
there's a fine line between being creative and just being out there. Okay, I think it's the easiest thing in the world to lock yourself in a closet and just play and play and play and then come out and say, gee, I was being creative. But the real thing is you have to know how to be creative but still connect with people. And you can't connect if you're not in touch. And the easiest way to stay in touch is to turn on your radio and see what's going on.
You really want to be in the record business? This is really your career? This is, for me, an old cliche, but for many years, as I would listen to tapes, I had a couple of rubber stamps on my desk. One with the funny little face, the raspberry, going pass. It said pass on it. But the other tape I had, with the other rubber stamp, was really the one. It said hobby. And I think music is a hobby, wonderful hobby for a lot of people. Fast record collection. Maybe even you went out and dropped 10 grand on a synthesizer, tape recorders, and you have a lot of fun making music. But it doesn't mean it's your career. And for those people that are willing to grow the hair, wear those clothes, keep a strange job so that their music career is #1. If you're willing to do that, come on in.
I learned the truth at 17, that love was meant for beauty queens and high school girls with clear skin smiles who married young and then retired.
When I was 14, I went around and banged on doors at record companies, every record company I could find, every producer I could find, and everybody told me I was too young, everybody told me the songs were too weird. One set of record companies told me I should go away and be a writer because I couldn't make it as a singer. The other half said I should go away and become a singer because I couldn't make it as a writer. And I guess through a series of lucky flukes, I got my first producer, Shadow Morton, my first record contract through him. But it was luck and just banging on doors.
Inventing lovers on the phone who called to say, come dance with me, and murmured vague obscenities. It isn't all it seems at 17.
In a recording studio, the producer is an integral part of the artist's team. He guides the recording process, helps select the music, oversees the engineering and mixing of the songs, and ultimately translates the artist's vision to tape.
A good producer, in my opinion, does something for the artist and the musicians that most people expect just comes naturally in the studio. Unfortunately, the studio is not the most natural place to work, or is it a place where you can turn yourself on and just say, look, I'm here. You've been practicing all your life, you come into a studio, and things don't happen the way you think they do. A producer's job is to understand the music, the integrity of the person who they're recording, the style in which you think that artist has the best potential as an artist, so that 2 years from now, my feelings are that they shouldn't come back at you and say, why did you make me make that record? And not that you have that kind of almighty power, but you are, in a sense, the person who makes, for them, you're the mirror, you're their family, you're the honest, if you're a good producer, everything that that person wants in the best tailored way.
Well, you know, people wonder if I ever take on acts that aren't signed. And I do, because there's really where it's at. I mean, there's where it's clean, it's raw, they haven't been, you know, I guess influenced by anybody in particular other than themselves. And I like the idea of trying to make it work. I tried it with Billy and it worked. I tried it with Bruce Hornsby and I couldn't get him arrested. Now, of course, he's got Grammys. Attaboy, Bruce. I tried it with Eric Johnson, couldn't get him arrested. Now he's a happening guitar player. I mean, which only tells me that the real satisfaction anyway has to come from your heart. And luckily I can pay the rent. I've got, you know, a couple of bucks in the bank. I don't have to worry about tomorrow's dinner. So I can afford to do it. And it tells me, seeing how these people were not accepted and then accepted years later, means that maybe I'm on the right track.
I have taken on acts and signed them that have not been signed, and shop the material and the artist. Yeah, I think it's vital for people who have had continued success with certain artists to give things back to the business if possible. You know, it's the only way I think that you continue the musical chase and the musical growth by giving of yourself and to the person and try to get them a break. I mean, it is a matter of people knowing somebody to just let them hear it, and then once you get past that point, the artist stands on their own.
I will take on an act that's not signed if I think that there is just an extreme amount of potential there and we can work together. A lot of times I see a really good act that's not signed that I can't really work with, and I can't take that on because it's nothing, I can't do anything for them and they can't do anything for me. But I will recommend an act that's not signed to a producer that I know who might be better for that. The acts that I take on that aren't signed are usually rock bands. They're usually self-contained and they're usually bands.
Occasionally I'll get involved with an act that is not signed. And occasionally I'll get involved with acts that are borderline, maybe about to be released or whatever. As an example, I got involved with an act who happens to be my cousin, Diane Reeves, who I knew was going to be released from Palo Alto Jazz Records, and she was about to do her last record for them. And I said, hey, why don't you come to me, let me work this out for you. And we talked about what kind of music and direction that she'd like to go in. And from there I took her to Manhattan, and they're doing great with her. You know, I've also gotten involved with a group called 101 North, which is distributed through Capitol Records, which is a group that I found in San Francisco. So occasionally I'll do that. It's a little tougher for me because I get involved with established acts and get calls from record companies and say, we'd like you to do this established act, and you know, it's kind of hard to turn that money down. But it's nice to find new talent.
When you look at an act, a band, or even an artist, what is it about that artist or band that would appeal to me the most? The number one thing is songs, above anything else. Whether it has nothing to do whatsoever with anything except the songs. Songs are so important. Without songs, and that's probably one of the reasons why we're doing this tape, is without songs, there's nothing.
The acts that I take on have to have a great vibe, because that's what record labels will sign. There are a lot of good bands that have great songs. There's a lot of great writers out there. There are probably a lot of great writers watching this that think they're great writers, and I'm sure they are great writers. But to get up there and to move an audience is very difficult. That's the hardest thing there is.
The elements that I look for when I hear a new band is basically musical. I personally think that the musical side, you know, the melodies, and to some extent, to a great extent, the lyrics, but mainly the melodies and everything, are the real important aspect of records that I like. And I've heard records that have been great musically and have terrible lyrics, and I've seen them be huge hits. And I've never yet seen a song that had the greatest lyrics and absolutely zero music be a hit.
Nowadays, it seems like you need a package. You need to be more than just a musician, you know, for example, or just a singer. There has to be a package to go with that in general now. It's not just a great voice. It's not just a great player. How do they look? Believe it or not, I mean, I hate to say it, I thought I would never see this happen in the industry to the degree that it is now, but it really is important as to the whole package, how you look, what demeanor you got. I mean, what's the vibe of your act? I mean, Prince has gotten involved with that for years. I mean, getting acts that not necessarily the greatest as far as singers or et cetera, but he puts that package together where they're marketed right, you know, and he knows how to put them together with an idea or vibe.
Looking for a producer before you have a record deal actually makes a lot of sense, because if the producer is has any reputation or has some kind of a track record, it's going to make it that much easier to get a record deal. Plus, there are some producers who really understand the pop sensibility, have a bit of radio sort of understanding, and could maybe take you as a young artist up to the next point, to where the demos that you do will be much more acceptable to the ears of someone, say, in the A&R department of a record company.
Finding a producer first is not necessarily the more viable way. It's one way, and it can be very useful, and it's worked in many, many cases. it's not any more viable than finding a manager first, or the record label first, or a publisher first. There are many spokes to the center of the wheel, and finding a good producer is one of them.
I'll listen to anything and everything that comes in the mail. That's how I found the Bruce Hornsby stuff, and that's how I heard Eric Johnson, and that's how I heard Sneaker. You never know. So you can send it to me, care of 400 South Beverly Drive, Suite 214, Beverly Hills, California, 90212. And I'll get it, and I'll listen to it.
Generally, an artist gets their material directly to me by mailing their songs or their cassettes right to the office. I've always kept an open door about that. I believe in it. The only thing that I request is that it be copyrighted material, and that's the only fair thing to do for both the songwriter and the people who receive it.
The way an artist gets material to me is by sending it to my management, and they usually screen things for me because they will know whether I can even deal with it or not. And that doesn't waste my time, it doesn't waste the artist's time. If it's an R&B act or a dance band, I can't do anything with it. And usually my manager will say, I'll give it to this other producer or something like that. And if it's something good, I'll listen to it, but then I have to go see the band live. What's real important is the live show for me.
I think that the age of an artist who's seeking a record deal is less important than it used to be. I think that it used to be that everyone was expected to be under 25 and raring to go, and it was very youth-oriented. And now I think with the expansion of adult contemporary radio and the baby boom covering a demographic of 25 to 45, someone who's not necessarily in the under 25 age group has got as good a shot as anybody else.
The important thing is to clearly define the direction you want to go in. There are many bands that say, well, we're going to make a tremendous demo. We'll do one song in style A, the second song in style B, then we'll do a ballad, then we'll do something else, because we can show the record company how wonderfully versatile we are. That's completely the wrong approach. A record company has a certain number of slots for releasing product, and generally speaking, they're not going to sign an act that they can't define.
If you're living in Nebraska or you're living in the Midwest or something and you have no real access to recording studios and so on and so forth, the next thing to do is to look at some of these songwriting things. For instance, the NAS is a really nice chance to get your songs heard.
The advice to someone trying to get a record deal is they have to be prepared, first of all, to take tons of rejection and not to let that affect them. If they let that affect you, then your whole artistic integrity goes out the window and you start sounding like everybody else, and then you won't get a record deal.
Major labels, how many major labels are there here? 6 major labels, okay? It's not really a very big business. It's a small community, and there are a lot of people waiting. If there's an artist there who's not going to cut it or has drug problems or goes bananas all the time and has lots of attitude, record companies aren't going to bother because there's 10 people standing behind them, ready and willing and able to do the same thing.
The thing is to try to work with people who are better than you are. If you can get together with other songwriters who you think write better than you, spend as much time with them as they can. If you can find a band, say in a club, who's willing to do your demos, who's a great band, go to them and say, would you play this song? Would you like this song? The band might play it the next night, they might like it, and they might ask you to write something else, and they got to go in and do a demo next week. Make sure you're in the business somehow, because just sending in a tape, the chances of that are just not that good.
The most important thing is to create a buzz, and then the labels will come to you. If you go keep pounding at labels' doors, if you're pounding, there's something wrong. Then you really don't have the buzz happening. But if the labels are starting to find out about you and coming to you and showing a little interest, and they won't show a ton of interest at first, but you can tell if a label's starting to like your stuff. If they show up at your concert, if they bring other people to see you, if they return your calls fast, you know you've got something happening. Tapes, I don't know, tapes are tough. Tapes are 1 in a million shots at record labels. I would say starting a buzz with live gigs is the best thing to do.
The advice I have to someone trying to get a record deal is to be consistent, know who you are, and really come with the best possible songs you can.
You should make the best demo that's available. Now, I don't mean you need to go into a 24 or 64 track studio, but I sort of have a pet feeling that most people who listen to your work can give you their undivided attention from 5 to 10 minutes. And if you take the theory of early rock and roll records and pop records, it was you better hit them in the first 15 seconds, and the next 15 you better keep their interest really going.
If you want to be in the music business, try to find yourself a job in the music business. Not to say that that's the only way to do it, but I certainly find that most of the people I know who are studio musicians, producers, all these people somehow expected to do it and got into it from the business side of it, whether it's sweeping floors or being an engineer or cutting tape or driving an equipment van, whatever it may be. The business of music is where you want to be.
I've been turned down more times than you'd know by selling the same artist back again, because the time was off, the song wasn't right at the time, or they were searching for something, or the strain at their office was to fulfill another artist's dream at the moment. So they really didn't give it a shot. So you have to be aware that that happens. It happens to all of us. And people do get turned down. As a matter of fact, most people that are successful have been turned down a lot more than you know.
We're going on a holiday now, going to take a very small chalet. Costa del Magnifico, yeah, the cost of living so low, yeah.
We made a demo tape of a few 5 songs or so in his 8-track studio. And I didn't want to go through this agony of taking it around to every record company in London. And of course we had to do that in the end. But before doing that, I thought maybe it'd be a good idea if we took it to a DJ who had a bit of a specialist radio show called Honky Tonk on a Sunday morning for Radio London. A man called Charlie Gillett. And Charlie started playing the tape on his radio show, and it got a lot of interest. It's amazing, in fact, how many A&R men happened to be listening to that show. And that definitely was the most important instigating thing as far as getting the record deal was concerned.
Maybe you're like Mark Knopfler in Dire Straits. You have your music act together, you've developed a loyal following. Perhaps what you need now is a manager. A manager is someone who can help you get your business act together, assist in shaping your image, and represent you to the record companies. But most importantly, a manager can be instrumental in planning out long-term career strategies.
Personal manager in its truest form is supposed to advise and counsel. We are the hub of the wheel from which everything comes to and everything goes out from. A good personal manager should know every aspect of an artist's career, which is one of the reasons why I got into it. It made my life very exciting and very interesting. Every phone call is different. We have to know how to negotiate a record contract in conjunction with an attorney. We have to know what venues are right to play. We have to know what material is right. We have to know the look, the feel, what publicity is right or wrong, and also do that in the context of a career, not just a one-dimensional, one-year type of a thing.
An artist should look for commitment, belief, interest, somebody they feel they can trust. And even if they feel they can trust that person, they should have checks and balances, because the horror story in this business all too often is artists getting ripped off by, unscrupulous managers. I'm not one of those people, and so I want to get those people out of our business. And so the artists really should have an attorney and a business manager, if they possibly can, to keep check on what's happening with what the manager is doing.
The going rate for managers is 15%, some are 20%. I know of one case where a manager gets 30%. My personal is I'm 15%.
The latest an artist needs management is when they have a record deal. There are often times you find, just in terms of the way that I'm approached daily, that artists will have a lawyer that will go and get the record deal. But particularly when the artist has his video being made, his marketing plans being developed with the record company, the first single coming out, etc. There better be a manager involved that's hands-on, that can sit there and really give input.
If you have the excitement, whether it's a large label or an independent label, if you have the excitement and you have just one person there that really believes in you and really knows what you're about, that person can make it happen. And if that person happens to be at a big label, it just happens with so much more ease.
I think realistically, labels are looking to spend, you know, $125,000, $150,000. They're looking to sign an artist for no more than one album firm, and because it negates the chance, the risk factor. But at the same time, like I said, you try to get, I view it really frankly as much as you can, because that's, to me, shows commitment and ties them into really having to sit there and make the thing happen.
The factors I look for an artist to be signed either to a management company or to a record label, there are three ingredients. One, certainly are their ability to write songs, and not just one song or two songs. I'm looking for an artist with 4 to 5 songs that I think are absolute killer songs. The secondly is their ability to perform live, and to take that and be as good live as they are on tape, and in most cases better live, as I had said earlier. And the third thing I look for is a personality. Someone that can do it in interviews, that is not a difficult person to deal with, someone that really is willing to put their career in my hands as well as their record company and let us go about to do our job. And their job is to make music, and our job is to make sure their music's exposed. And they're the three main ingredients for me.
I've taken on a couple of acts before they've had a record deal. It's the much harder element of the business to do. In other words, if you're a non-creative manager that is better at the business end of things, it's almost suicidal, because what most managers would then do is they would go to a record company, have a couple of demos, say this is the artist, whether it's a new artist or it's an established artist. Usually an established artist will have a record deal. And you kind of sit there and you're at their mercy.
I have taken on acts before they are signed to labels, but my policy now is to really limit that. I have 3 new artists that I'm working with and I'm out trying to get record deals for. That takes a lot of time, and it's a lot of frustration, and both for the artist as well as for myself. So I'm looking now for someone that is close to being signed or signed to a label. But again, I will listen to that new artist, and if I hear something I think is very unique, then I'll take it on. That's how I get the 3 unsigned acts as they are now.
I think Jody Watley is the best example of getting involved with an artist before they have a record deal. And in Jody's case, what we basically did was, before we shopped her and just said, this is Jody Watley, formerly of Shalimar, and played a couple of demos, was between her and myself, we really put together and A&R'd our own record. So Jody took some time and did some work with Andre Simone, her producer, who co-wrote a lot of the songs in basic demo form, 8-track demos. I got her involved with Pat Leonard, who had produced Madonna and wanted to do some work with Jody. We got some other songwriters involved. Bernard Edwards, who Jody knew from the Chic days when he was involved with them, who's one of the bigger producers in the business now, wanted to produce her. And then Jody and myself had known George Michael, and George expressed an interest to work with Jody. So what we did, and I think it's a very important thing for most people that are watching this video, is to really take time in putting a package together. And if you have the right lawyer and the right manager, and if you have the ideas, rather than going to a record company and just play them a couple of songs, and this is easier said than done, okay, but if you can do it, the best thing is we were able to go in and say, I represent Jody Watley. These are some of the songs we've done. We have Andre Simone, Bernard Edwards, and Pat Leonard involved in production, and we can guarantee that George Michael will do a duet. These people rolled over and, you know, were like seals, basically. Everyone wanted to be involved.
The best way an artist can get their material to me is just send it directly to me. If they're with a publishing company and they're sending stuff that they want to submit to any of the artists that we have at the office, they just send it directly to the office. If they want to submit themselves as an artist on their own, send it to the office. I listen to everything.
I prefer just the demo tape. I'm not really interested in the video aspect. I think that gets very expensive for the artist. I would just prefer them to send me a 3 to 5 song demo with a little bit of bio about the band, what they've done, if they've done any recording before. and maybe a photo of themselves. But as far as a video, that's a great asset if they're going to go to that expense. But for me, it's really not necessary.
The age of an artist is important depending upon, you know, where they are. We're in a very youthful-oriented business, and to come in with a new artist is obviously, you know, something where if they're 38 years old and they're very talented and this is going to be their debut album, I think record companies will tend to be a little bit more skeptical.
In my estimation, an act's ability to perform live is everything. In this day and age, it's more and more difficult to get a band marketed by a record company, and what it does is it takes a lot of the pressure off of the record company to break an act immediately through radio, which is getting harder and harder to get played on.
I think that you try and go to other labels not only to create the bidding war, but to create the interest and to find out what their idea of the artist is and where they would take the artist. And then in the end, I think that even though money is very important, if I were making the decision and it was a difference of $50,000, but I felt there was more excitement for the artist at the label that was offering less, I'd go to the label that was offering less.
Once you have interest in an artist at a particular label, you have to be a prudent businessman in that you have to see what the market will bear for your artist as a commodity. At the same time, if you have a special relationship that develops with a particular label, for example, if you have an artist that you know, let's say a certain A&R man or the certain head of a record company is absolutely going to be in love with this particular artist, you can sit there and say, this is the label for that artist. You can sit down with them and sometimes say, listen, this is the deal I want. If you put this together, you can prevent me from going to other labels. I think you have to, it's more along the lines of each particular artist and how it relates. But, you know, bidding wars are, you know, are something that you don't look to have happen, because what unfortunately ends up happening is you leave people with a very bad taste in their mouth a lot of times. And in business, you're not looking to do that.
My advice to artists today is that if you believe, truly believe, you will never take no for an answer. Never. I don't care if every record company, every management company, every booking agency says no, you have to keep saying yes.
Most of the people that have made it, whether it's, again, behind the scenes or in front of the scenes, have really spent a lot of time and really worked hard at it and really knew what they wanted. And usually you'll find people that are talented that haven't spent the time and the anguish of failing. Because you have to fail to succeed. So, I mean, if you don't know what you want, it's easy when you are failing for people to say, well, you should be a truck driver. Okay, I can make more money, I'll be a truck driver. But if you really know what you want, then nobody's going to get in the way. I liken it to the knockdown doll when you're a kid. You know, you knock it down, it comes back up. You know, if you're not that way with this business, then you know, you just won't succeed.
Still somehow I believe we'd always survive. Now I'm not so sure you're waiting ahead.
Basically, I sang, I made demo tapes and I sang for everybody I could, and finally I sang for Jimmy Messina. And it was through Jimmy Messina that I got interest from Clive Davis. Clive had heard my demos from other people and was interested, but he wanted to see what the chemistry between Jimmy and I would bring. And when Jimmy called him and said, this is definitely a project I want to do, that was the beginning of my career.
Well, we've heard from A&R executives, producers, managers, all essential ingredients to a successful recording career. Yet the funny thing is that they'd all be out of work if it weren't for the one key element: you, the recording artist. You're the one who's out there writing and performing the material and building a following that ultimately buys your records. That is, after all, what the record business is all about. Yet remember, every successful recording artist was, at one time or another, right where you are now.
Getting an artist heard by an A&R department is difficult because there's so many people. They all are sending their tapes in, and some of them have, you know, agents and managers, and some of them don't. You know, I think it's a combination of sending your tapes around, but I also think that you have to be able to be out there and playing live. I think that you have to create a buzz in your town. You know, you have to create a local following so that people start to hear about what you're doing. I mean, I would go and play at the Troubadour in Hollywood, and I would play every Monday night that I could, and you know, started to gain a reputation. People started to know my songs. And my first deal on Columbia Records I got by, you know, a guy in the A&R department hearing me play at the Troubadour. I just, you know, not knowing anything about me, not knowing Linda Ronstadt had recorded my songs. So, I mean, that's how I got signed. So I believe in, you know, live performance. I think it's real important.
I think it's not wise for anyone to just blindly submit tapes to record companies without some sort of, you know, preparation in advance. In other words, that A&R person should know this tape is coming, should, you know, be committed to listening to it. Anything short of that, I think, is a waste of time.
The standard answer to how to get an A&R person to listen to your material would be to do something that's going to catch their ear. And that hasn't changed since the 50s, when you had 15 seconds to catch a program director's ear, and if you hadn't done it by then, they lifted the needle up.
If you've got public interest and record company interest, the only thing that I would suggest is get a lawyer.
For an artist seeking a record deal today, I would say, you know, a tape. I think the shorter the tape is better. 3 songs that represent the artist's voice, certainly the best that the artist has to offer, but also in different styles, like maybe a mid-tempo, up-tempo, and a ballad. I think it's important that those tapes be well produced, as clean, so to speak, as possible, preferably 24-track demos, not necessarily to add more parts, just the cleanness and clarity of sound. I think a photo is important. A producer commitment, if that's possible, that's very good, as well as some sort of accessibility to songs. So, in other words, when a record company sees that an artist has a tape that they like, a photo that they like, a producer who they like, and the availability of songs, I think that's pretty much what they're looking for.
Ultimately, it's really control what you want, and if you go in with everything together, then it's easier for you to obtain that control. If you kind of go in and they feel that, well, you don't really know what you want and you don't really have good representation, then you find yourself, I think, doing a lot of things that you don't really want to do.
One of the most important things to look for in management is that they're in the management business. A lot of times you'll have a manager, I had a manager once, real smart guy, a real good, honest, caring person, but he was in another business, in show business, television director, brilliant one. And although he wanted to be a manager, well, his main business was directing television shows. And consequently, I didn't have the access to his brilliance or his good wishes and his belief in me. I didn't have access to that because he was busy making quite a good living doing what he did for a living. So consequently, the day-to-day management of Billy was left to somebody who was not as smart, who didn't care about me as much, who didn't have the contacts and the access that he had. And it almost destroyed my career.
The elements of a manager are kind of an ambiguous thing. You know, I think it depends on what the artist needs from a manager. I mean, some people need more babysitting and they need more coaxing, and some people just need someone to kind of organize things for them and make phone calls. I really think it's a really individualized thing that, you know, as far as finding a manager, you've got to find someone that you have the right chemistry with. I think it's really more about that than anything else.
Someone with a plan is nice, if you agree with the plan. For a long time, I didn't have anybody with a plan. I never have had, except recently. A manager I got now has sort of got a plan for world domination, but not for me. But honesty, you know, is important. A guy who doesn't lie to you isn't always tremendously optimistic and say, yeah, it'll be great, and you get there and there are 6 angry people in the audience.
I think the basic thing I look for in a manager, and I have, I think, the best manager on the planet I've had since 1973, Ron Moss, is just a prime example of everything I'm saying right now, is a guy who really just genuinely wants to help that dream become fulfilled. He genuinely sees what this musician or artist is doing, and he really has a goal to want people to experience this and gets a fulfillment from it, and also likes the mechanics of management. He has to like management. He has to like working with people. He has to like public relations and all that it's about. He has to like the game of the telephone and schedules, and because that's what it's all about.
I tried to stay away from managers as much as I could. The reason is I thought it was more important if I learned what my business was about. I thought it was more important if I would learn what ASCAP and BMI and publishing and royalties and foreign was about, since I'm going to be dealing with this, no different than a carpenter who understands different grains of woods, different kinds of wood, different sizes of nails. There's a lot of things to master within the nucleus of an entity, meaning the record industry. And if you say, I want to be an artist, you need to master everything that deals with that artistry.
I think the most important element to look for in a record deal from a record company is that they really want you. I mean, a lot of times you'll get a sense of, yeah, we feel kind of borderline about this act, but we'll take them. Well, how much are they going to get behind you? So you got a record out, so your mother sees that you have a record, your name on a record. That's about all it's going to be worth to you in a situation like that. You got to really believe that they're very excited about you, because remember, 9 out of 10 records flop. And they run their business based on that assumption, that 1 in 10 will be a hit and pay for the 9 that flop. So you better be the 1 in 10 that they're really excited about. Otherwise, you haven't got a chance.
We didn't know which way it was going to go, you know. We'd figured that if we, on one hand, if we went with a major company, they might not understand what we're doing, and we might get shelved at the time. And so we'd figured that we'd kind of start small and go with somebody like Slash Records, which was a record label that was really, you know, giving a lot of bands that had an alternative type music a chance at that time.
I never wanted a record deal. I always looked for a relationship. Record deals come and go. Can I get the people on the phone after I've signed the contract? Will they communicate with me? Will they lie to me? Will they be honest with me? Will they tell me that the product isn't right from an honest perspective instead of a political one? Relationship to me is like a woman and a man. You meet a woman, usually the woman is playing a fair game. It's the man that's playing those little strange little games. Well, the record company is the man. The artists, the producers, the writers are the women who get had by the record companies, because most people are looking for deals instead of relationships.
You might get anything from no front money to, you know, maybe $50,000, $60,000, $75,000 front money, and maybe anywhere from $75,000 to $200,000 in a budget, you know, and maybe a budget for a video. First video might be anywhere from $20,000 to, if they're really behind you, maybe even $100,000.
I feel that perseverance is an extremely important factor with anyone starting out, because there's a slight sort of inclination with a lot of young people, not only just people in the business, with not sticking at something, becoming very flitting from one thing to the other, and maybe giving up on well, I think I'm doing something wrong, so I'll try something else. And they'd lose themselves. They lose what they may have really got in the first place. by trying too many, or maybe listening to too many different ideas at the same time. I think you've really got to stick to your guns and have a really inner command about what you really want to project and hang on to it at all costs.
The dedication and the love of your craft is going to give you the patience you need to outlast the industry. By artists being in such a hurry to get success, the first deal that come up, they'll take it, and the first rejection they get, it breaks their hearts.
One of the things I've learned through the year is that a record company is less interested in who you are as an artist, like what your capabilities are. One of the things I like to do, for instance, is do a lot of different kinds of things. It's been a barrier to me in getting a record deal, because the record company is thinking, well, what's he going to do? Is he going to do a jazz record? Is he going to do a pop record? Is he going to do a, what's he going to do? See? So I think the artist should definitely make a differentiation between his total capability and his full dream and desire in what he wants to do, and hone it down to what is he going to produce on this record, and what's he going to do with that product once he makes it. Is he going to take it out and tour with it? What's he going to physically do this year of his life?
Probably the single most important thing in acquiring a record deal outside of expertise, and that is being a good singer or a good songwriter, is the identifiability of a sound. You'll often find that singers that don't sing as well as others, because they have a clearly identifiable sound, they have a persona, they have an image in the visual marketplace and in the, you know, on the radio. You know that this is this artist when you hear it.
There is a different emphasis on how important it is how young you are. I think in pop music and rock music, obviously, it's more important to be young, since that's there's a physical association with your audience. Jazz music and classical music are more spiritual in a sense. They're less, it matters less what your body age is, so the artists, it's okay for them to be older, I guess.
You really have to have knowledge of how the industry works to be effective. The more knowledge you have, and the more wisdom you use in operating the machinery, the more you're going to increase the odds that everything you do will be successful.
I would be real wary of anybody who makes promises, or anybody who says for X dollars I will get you a record deal. There's a lot of that going on, and it's real dangerous. I think the most important thing when you're going to shop a deal is to have somebody who believes in you.
I feel it's absolutely, totally important for artists to be aware of business practices, and they should become aware. And as a matter of fact, when I am talking with a musician friend or someone who's involved with the music business in some kind of a way, and I hear them being a little bit too critical about record companies or management or business or the establishment, I know right away that they're not taking responsibility.
Rolling down Imperial Highway, the big nasty red at my side, Santa Ana winds blowing hot from the north, and we were born to ride.
One of the hard things that people don't do, or writers don't do, is work hard enough outside the studio. But I think you ought to sit there. It's very hard to do. I mean, it is for me to sit in a room by myself with nobody applauding and no one saying, oh, what if we do this, what if we do that? But that's what I've done all my life. And that's what I can do. I can hang in there. And it doesn't always come easy, and sometimes it doesn't come at all. That's what I would advise. You know, just stay by yourself and get it. Get it as best you can.
Look at that mountain. Look at those trees. Look at that bum over there, man. He's down on his knees. Look at these women. Ain't nothing like them nowhere.
If you have songs that have been recorded by other artists, and especially if there have been some hits in there, the credibility factor is increased greatly. And if you've got an instrument, a voice, or the talent, it leaves the impression, or gives the impression to people in the record industry, well, if the guy wrote hits for them, he could write hits for himself. It's the goose that laid the golden egg theory. You laid one, I want to be there when the next one comes.
I went to Nashville and wanted to be a songwriter, and started right at the bottom, and met a bunch of songwriters. But it takes a while to build up any kind of a track record. I got a job in the recording studio there as a janitor and got to hang around a lot of sessions and pitch songs to people. Got pitched songs to Johnny Cash till he was distracted.
I find that if I have different toys around to play with, that's to say different sounds, and a different environment and a different sort of general aspect, then it helps me get through the usual, you know, what I suppose people do call creative block. I mean, if you work in the same way all the time, yeah, there must be times when you just think, I just can't do it anymore.
Write songs. Songs are the key. If you have songs, you got a better chance. If you don't have songs, you got no shot. Nobody's going to sign an artist nowadays unless you got songs.
My advice is to not stop if you're turned down, or if you're discouraged, or if the feedback you've gotten about your material is not what you expected. Also, even if you completely believe in the 6 or 10 or 12 songs that you have demoed already, continue to write, continue to demo, because I think to maybe get to the great songs that are in you, you need to write some songs in front of that first.
You got to be careful that you're getting into it for the right reasons. If you're in it for the love, then be a songwriter till you die, you know. But if you're in it for the money, you're probably never going to get the money. I mean, if you're real good, you're lucky to make a living at it.
The advice that I have for artists looking for a record deal would be basically to go, my feeling is they should go either to LA or New York, if they're rock or pop, and knock on doors and sing for people in person, especially if they're good singers, like Michael Bolton just sang a piece, and you know, a guy like that could sing the phone book and make it work. If you can present your material well, go into the office and present the material, piano voice, guitar voice, any way you can, and open doors for yourself from the bottom up.
My advice to anyone seeking a record deal today would be find some other line of work. This is really hard. But if you've got to do it, you know, if it's so strong in you that it doesn't matter how many times you get clobbered, go out and do it. Do whatever you can. Knock on doors, bang down doors, do guest shows wherever they'll have you for free, write with whoever you can write with, sing wherever you can sing. Don't be ashamed to do bar gigs. Don't be ashamed to do homecoming things. We've all done them. And it teaches you how to work with an audience. Sooner or later, something breaks if you keep knocking. You just got to keep at it.
Before shopping a record deal, I think you really have to search yourself and decide what it is you want to accomplish. And the whole aspect of it, not just, I want to get a record deal. You have to really give it a lot more thought than that, and really put it together in a way that that when you go in, they know that they're dealing with someone who knows what it is that they want to do.
A lot of people knocking on that door, and it's very few that the door gets kicked open to. But when the door gets kicked open, it's very important to be ready and to be confident, be faithful.
If you're seeking a record deal today, I think the first thing you have to do is make sure that you have, you know, 4 to 6 things on tape that are really excellent, that you love in your heart, and that you don't send anything around until you're really sure that you have that. And I think that's where you have to start. And you have to live with it for a while, too, before you send it around, because I think there's just so many times you can keep sending your tape to the same people. So I think you have to really make sure you're ready before it goes out there.
I don't think you should try and do something that you think record companies are looking for. I think that's the crux of the matter. You should do what pleases you. You have to please yourself first.
Leave the money out of it. Only do what you would do for free. That's when you make $1 million. When you would do it for free, that means you love it regardless. that's when you become successful.
It's very important to let people know how you feel and what you feel that you want to do later on, so that they see some future in it. You know, it's a career, it's a job, it's a life.
Well, there you have it from the pros themselves. As we've just learned, it's not an easy road, but it can be done. If you're going to succeed in this business, it's got to become a way of life. Learn everything you can about the business. Read the trades, go to as many seminars as possible, network with as many people as you can. Surround yourself with people who believe in you, but most importantly, believe in yourself, and don't give up until you've achieved that ultimate goal of getting a record deal.